present, Linda. That was item number 1. We're on item number 2. We will now recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. All of the trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority are in attendance. Item 4, the Enid Municipal Authority special meeting items. Item 4.1, consider resolution decreasing the 2015-2016 fiscal year financial plan for the Enid Municipal Authority in the amount of $6,357,582.
I move we approve this resolution.
I'll second that.
Motion by Ben, second by David.
Mayor.
Further discussion?
Yes. I looked through the list. I'm assuming this is where we have the listed items that we're deferring from the budget. And I'd like to see us add a few. I picked out about 5 items here that would allow us to keep another $1 million in our bank account. One of them, biggest one, would be the West Garriott sewer extension. I think we could very easily postpone that for a year. Also, the entryway signs in the amount of $110,000. I'd like to see us add that to the list of deferred items. The downtown water main, whatever that item is, $100,000. And then also $30,000 of the Vance Trail proposal. I would like to amend the motion to add those items and allow us to have another $1 million in our cash account.
We have a motion in a second. Your motion would be, if this motion fails, you would like to move those to the defer column. Is that?
We could do that, or we could handle this as an amendment to your motion. But I think it would require a second to amend the motion. Our attorney can tell you.
If Ben wanted to amend his motion, he could amend his motion, but it's his motion to amend.
I think I will decline to amend my motion in this instance. It's been I'd like to not go in at this point and change some of those, although I agree with you on a couple of them. I think we have a plan here that is compromise, that is some amount of everybody giving and taking a little bit, and I'm going to retain my motion as written in that spirit.
Well, the reason that I brought it at this particular point is, like I say, I know there were some compromises discussed, but I was never involved in any of those compromises. And to me, these items are easily as deferrable as the ones that were selected for that purpose. And so that's the reason I brought it up at this point. And like I say, when these items do come to us for approval at some point during the year, assuming they stay in, I'm going to vote against it.
Do we have a second?
David seconded already.
Not to the
Pardon me, I didn't hear what you said.
David seconded my initial motion.
Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-1. Item 4.2, consider and take action with respect to a resolution authorizing the Enid Municipal Authority, to issue its utility system and sales tax revenue note, Series 2015, the note, in the aggregate principal amount of $5,615,000, waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the note to be sold on a negotiated basis, approving and authorizing the execution of a sales tax agreement by and between the City of Enid, Oklahoma, the city, and the authority pertaining to a year-to-year pledge of certain sales tax revenue, approving and authorizing execution of an indenture authorizing the issuance and securing the payment of the note, providing that the organizational document creating the authority is subject to the provisions of the indenture, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement as amended by and between the city and the authority pertaining to the city's water, sanitary, sewer, and solid waste collection and disposal systems, establishing the authority's reasonable expectation with respect to the issuance of tax-exempt obligations by the authority in calendar year 2015, and designating the note as a qualified tax-exempt obligation, authorizing and directing the execution of the note, and other documents relating to the transaction, including professional services agreements and a parity agreement and containing other provisions relating thereto.
Is that as short as you can make that, Andrea?
I didn't write that one.
Okay.
I'll move approval.
Motion by David, second by Aaron. Further discussion? Hearing none, please cast your vote.
Well,
John wants to talk.
You're gonna have to talk just a little louder, John. Sorry. John Wolf.
I've passed out a tabulation of bids that we received this morning, make sure everyone has one. You may have received one via email earlier in the afternoon, but we had an actual due date or due time of 10 o'clock this morning from banks interested in this transaction that we had sent a package out to them in the last couple of weeks and received actual quotes from 5 separate banks with various prepayment or call options. The lowest bid was from Branch Banking and Trust, or BB&T, out of North Carolina. They had actually bid a fixed interest rate. Transactions $5,615,000. It's a 5-year term. They bid an interest rate or a fixed interest rate of 1.7%. The total interest, assuming that the note would go out through the term, would be $266,612.65. That's assuming we would close the transaction on June 30th. They also bid a prepayment or a call option that the note could be, at the discretion of the city, could be prepaid or called in any time through the first 2 years, but it would involve a 1% premium. After that, the final 3 years could be called in without any type of premium. Obviously, the need or the reason for doing this transaction is to conserve cash. We don't anticipate that you would be prepaying with cash during the next 2 years, but if you were, that would cost you a 1% premium. We actually had 2 separate bids from Bank of Oklahoma, and which we'll call the cover bid. We had a non-callable, which means you cannot prepay at any time, interest rate quote from Bank of Oklahoma of 1.73. And they also quoted a 1.86%, but the debt cannot be prepaid for the first 3 years of the 5-year term. And then we also received quotes from Central National Bank of a 1.8%, from NBC Oklahoma for 1.96%, and from RCB Bank, which is out of Claremore, for 1.98%. Those 3 bids actually they involved a prepayment option that you could prepay or call those at any time without any type of penalty. But those are obviously at the higher interest rates. Be glad to answer any questions. From strict interest rate quote, we would recommend that you award to BB&T, but I'd be glad to answer any questions that any of the trustees have.
David, would you amend your motion to award this to BB&T?
Yes, I would. I'll still second that.
I got a question.
I do too. Go ahead.
Do we have to take the lowest bid? I mean, do we have any decision on who we?
Well, you can award to the lowest and best bid. That's your decision as the governing body. And so what you have in front of you is the actual interest dollars that you will pay through the full term of this transaction.
I just didn't know by law if we even had a choice.
No, you award to the lowest and best. You decide what is lowest and best. So you can see what's the lowest, but then you have to decide what's best.
I work for the Central National Bank part-time. Is there a conflict of interest?
No, there's actually an exception for the,
I needed to hear that from you.
It does seem that this BB&T note, I mean, it's ideal for our purposes. It seems incredibly unlikely that we're going to need to prepay prior to July 1 of 17. I mean, it's thrilled to receive that low a bit.
Would you repeat the motion, please? Is it as it was read?
To approve the resolution.
Have they changed anything that I didn't hear?
Well-
I have a new hearing aid, so that helps.
Dr. Van Hooser moved to approve the motion, or the resolution, and then amended it to award this to BB&T.
And the second was, Aaron,
Yes.
another
I
comment?
take you on the, being someone clear from North Carolina, does that make any difference here as far as reputable people to deal with? I mean,
We have actually had numerous transactions where they have awarded the bid throughout Oklahoma with various municipal clients. They showed interest over 5, 6 years ago, quite some time, and they contacted us, say, hey, we'd be very interested in bidding on transactions. We probably have had our communities award probably more than 15 transactions in the last couple of years have been awarded to branch banking and trust. So we're familiar, they're familiar with us, we're familiar with them, documents, everything that goes associated with this project. But they bid on a lot of transactions.
And Rodney, I will say in my practice, I've dealt with BB&T a couple times on one side or another. They've been very professional and perfectly pleasant to deal with, clearly have an interest in Oklahoma.
one reason I brought it up, we're only not that far off a local bank, and I didn't know, kind of, be nice if it could stay local, but,
Alan, please use the mic.
So this, just a comment, and this is not an anti-local bank statement at all, because if the local bank had the low bid, we would be recommending that you go with the local bank. In our experience, when we try to get communities to bid on your transactions, it's very difficult to get them to bid a second time if they've got the low bid and you awarded to another bank, local bank preference, whatever it is, instead of them. It certainly has a chilling effect the next time you go to the market and ask for banks to bid. At that point in time, a bank gives you a low bid, you don't take it. Next time they don't bid, and suddenly you're in an environment that is less competitive. So our recommendation would be that you take the lowest interest rate. In this case, it happens to be from a bank that's out of state. And I would echo John's comments as well as Commissioner Zell's. We've had nothing but positive interaction with them. They've done what they've said they were going to do. But that's just our thoughts on the matter.
John, what do you anticipate or estimate our cash position to be at the end of 5 years? I know it's paid off.
Yeah, John.
This is why we're doing this.
Well,
To me,
certainly.
it's a good question.
Well,
Yeah.
What? You know,
It really is-
we're not going to hold you to it.
No, it
but
really
there's
is a
got to be an
combina-
answer somewhere, John.
no, it really is a combination of what you had to address in this particular fiscal year that we just get ready to start. You have to make those tough decisions for the next 5 years as to determine where you can be and what you can accumulate. I think this is a year-to-year scenario that certainly for the next 2 to 3 years you're going to have to address. And so this obviously put you in a position to have $5.6 million in cash that you will not have to touch this upcoming budget year. And then you've already addressed the, use the proper political term, maybe deferrals of projects or elimination, at least within this budget, of using budget dollars this upcoming year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I think you had mentioned a good goal for us to keep in mind was to raise EMA balances to about 10 million by the end of by the end of this coming fiscal year. So we should be on track to get to that point with the debt and with the cuts or the deferrals that we made. Is that not correct?
Right, and what's most important is your next 2 fiscal year ends, that once this is a $5.6 million, we obviously know the size of the transaction associated with the water line, and all the ancillary, not like I use ancillary, we're talking other very high cost items associated with the line to Call Lake, but we believe that you have to put yourself in a position, and we believe it from day one, is that June 30, 2015, June 30, 2016, what your balance sheet looks like these next 2 years is going to be critical, because that balance sheet will be what will be looked at when you are looking at financing phase 1 of your project. And so I believe that it's certainly, if you get to a minimum of 10 million in cash, that will put you in a lot better position. I think you'll be at a level that it won't get any extra attention from a balance sheet position. You made certainly a good move towards that with this tonight, so.
Thank you.
David?
I want to say, really, I guess on behalf of all of us, how much we appreciate how hard you've worked on this. You have set a new standard that we're now going to hold you to, finding $6 million worth of financing in less than 2 weeks.
That is pretty impressive.
We should only have one payment to make in the next fiscal year. $500,000, is that correct? Because the second payment would be in July
Right,
2016.
right.
So we're going to get to 5.1 million at the end of the first year.
Correct. You're correct.
Did you say 5.1 or 5.6?
Well, the 5,615,000 is, I think I made the comment, you have to net the two, the actual payment, the first payment out on the amortization. 540,000.
That's correct.
So you really do have to look at the net effect, as you're correct, Chairman Shuey, that 5,615,000 less 540,000. So you will net out cash flow better at 5 million for next fiscal year.
Any other comments or questions? John, we thank you. Hearing none, please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Item 5, we will now adjourn to reconvene as the Enid City Commission. Item 5.1, consider a resolution decreasing the 2015-2016 fiscal year budget for the City of Enid, Oklahoma, in the amount of $6,159,065.
Move to approve.
Motion by Ben, second by David. Further discussions or comments? Hearing none, please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-1. Item 5.2, keep Ben awake over there. Consider and take action with respect to a resolution of the City of Enid, Oklahoma, the city, approving the incurrence of indebtedness by the Enid Municipal Authority, the authority, issuing its utility system and sales tax revenue note, Series 2015, the note, providing that the organizational document creating the authority is subject to the provisions of the indenture, authorizing the issuance of said note, waiving competitive bidding with respect to the sale of said note, and approving the proceedings of the authority pertaining to the sale of said note, approving and authorizing the execution of a sales tax agreement by and between the city and the authority pertaining to the year-to-year pledge of certain sales tax revenues, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement as amended by and between the city and the authority pertaining to the city's water, sanitary sewer, and solid waste collection and disposal systems, establishing the city's reasonable expectation with respect to the issuance of tax-exempt obligations by or on behalf of said city in calendar year 2015, and designating the note as a qualified tax-exempt obligation, declaring an emergency, and containing other provisions relating thereto.
I move we approve this resolution and award the bid to Branch Banking and Trust Company.
Motion by Ben. Second by Rodney. Further questions or discussion?
Just one question. The idea of declaring an emergency, that's needed here because we have to get it done by
June 30th.
By the end of the year,
End of fiscal.
end of
That's why we had the meeting today.
which is Tuesday.
Or I might make one other point. The entities that bid these obligations, based upon what rates can do between now and the time they bid, they require an approval. We got the bids at 10 this morning. The bids are so in addition to the fact we need to have the transaction closed by the end of the year, the bids won't hold. So in your case, which is a little different than a lot of cities where a resolution as opposed to, in addition to an ordinance, requires an emergency, this would require an emergency for that reason as well.
Okay. Further discussions, further questions? Hearing none, please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0.
Do we need to do a separate vote for the emergency? I move we declare it an emergency.
Second?
Motion by Ben, second by Tammy to declare an emergency. Further discussion, please cast your vote. Motion carries 7-0. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ben, second by Rodney. Please cast your vote.
Fantastic.
You want to practice? Keep on voting.
Yeah. Hey, David, Tammy, guys.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.